Good morning. It's Norma Cowie here for Wednesday's Norma Talks. I'm laughing because sometimes a minute is a long time waiting. And I've got a scratchy voice again this morning. I don't know. In the mornings, I seem to have a scratchy voice often. The last two shows I've done, I have been freezing. So last Wednesdays, I was just beginning to wrap up everything I was saying when I froze. And thank goodness there were some people on my chat line that said, "You're frozen." I didn't know that. I had a notice that it was unstable, but I've had that before and nothing has really happened. This time I froze, like bang. And when I re-looked at it, there was a person that came right on, like was almost joined to me. I don't know what happened. So then on Monday night, I'm doing mental mind treatment. Again, I froze, and thank goodness the participants wrote, "You're frozen." So actually, I just pulled right out and went back in again. And some people didn't realize that, and some did. So we kind of got through that one. But it's interesting, and I was trying to figure out how come I'm freezing, and I haven't put my finger on it yet. So if I freeze, know that I will go back out and re-come in if I haven't finished what I was saying. I also listened to what I said last Wednesday, and that was a lot because it is a lot. And so I am going to do another talk on that. And I think I'll go back and delete that other one because it's just so much information without, I felt it was like, I know it because I've created it, lived with it, worked with it. But it's like, needing to become aware. This all came about because I had a question asking, how is it that when you do everything right, which is the mental processing, that you still fail? We have a lot of inner systems, and a lot of them based on childhood experiences, based on decisions that we make based on childhood experiences. What ends up happening is that we have all this inner systems working, maybe not to our advantage. So that's what I'm going to really talk about. And there's lots of ways of figuring that out. It took me years to put all this together, to be honest. And so I'm just going to touch on some very high, what I consider important basics. One of the things to recognize that we have these systems, some we know about. The chakras I've spoken about, and how I work with an expanded chakra system, which I have, from way back. Another the story with that is another friend of mine was studying with another teacher, and they had discovered one chakra, which wasn't really properly placed, but that's okay. That's a lot of years ago now. And so me being me, I immediately started exploring the whole system and came in with my expanded chakra system that I find works very, very well. Because if one of those chakras is off, like not doing its job or not in alignment with the others, then you're going to have trouble there. That also deals with, and something that I'm really big on for people who are sensitive, is your aura. People must know where their aura is. And a lot of people don't necessarily know that. If you get upset, if you get disturbed, if you feel off, very often it's because your aura is too big. If you've had a shock, your aura tends to go out, and then it picks up all sorts of things. I don't like the aura being too far. I can tell you some funny experiences, though. If we had a crowd of my friends and we go to see a parade or something, they would say, get behind Norma. She knows how to get through a crowd. And I would shape my aura like an arrow. And it's true, everyone got out of our way. I used to do it when I had to rush with my car somewhere. I would just move them away. They would, and it sounds crazy, but it works. I don't use it very often now at all. I'm not running kids here or there, or I'm not trying to get somewhere with no time allotted, so to speak. But the aura, if you can know where your aura is, and the thing is that you don't want it too far from your body, you want it strong, because otherwise you pick up a lot of things from other people. So that's one of the most important things to recognize, is where your aura is. And if you're not feeling good, if you walk into a crowd and or you're around somebody and it just doesn't feel right, pull the check, where's my aura? You don't want anyone else's aura going in with you. I I can tell you, besides the aura can also give you some mental thoughts as well. And I'm just going to tell you some funny story. A funny story. No, it's not funny, but it's something that I have done a lot when I was out shopping. And I go into a big store and I go around the jewelry counter in particular, and I would pick up thought forms. And I sometimes could pick out where it was coming from about stealing stuff. So I would clean out all these thought forms, because I had one girl come to me one time and said, Norma, why would I be thinking about stealing things? I don't steal things. I said, your aura is too big. You're picking up other people's thinking. So watch for that. If you have a change in your energy, watch. Where have you been? Who have you picked up? Where is it sitting in front, within you? Because it's going to be coming into your system, but it's not necessarily yours. So that's the aura is so, so important as far as if one thing you need to be in charge of is where your aura is and how big that is. And I know I've spoken on that several times. Another thing that is very important for you is balancing your emotions and your mental. In our society, we tend to be more mentally oriented. I'm not really giving emotions too much credit, because people feel out of control or they get out of control, etc. But internally, we need the mental and the emotions working together. And it's called balancing them, to have a balanced mental, emotional. So not one is overworking with the other, but they're working together. That makes a huge, huge difference in how you create in your life and where you're going. Now we're human, so very often we will be more emotional, or we are more mental. But the thing is to work at being as balanced as you possibly can. That is the big thing. The other thing I really want at this point to go on is your psychic element. Everyone is born psychic, some more than others. Some have to be like me and have to go in training and learn, because that wasn't encouraged in my family, even though it's in my genetics, by the way. But we do have a psychic eye, we have a psychic ear, we have a psychic nose. I know some really good stories about psychic nose. Psychic mouth. Most people don't have that, like aware of that, but it's there. And you have your intuition, which is your whole body. So your eyes, psychic eyes, is like those of us that are clairvoyant, or we learn how to see. I know people who can see right inside people and can tell them what's wrong with them. I don't have that skill, but others do. Ears down here are your psychic ears. Sometimes people have a lot of pain down there and they don't know why. It's because the psychic ear is blocked. So you come down, and if you try around the I think that bone is called estoid or something down here, and it hurts, that's your psychic ear that's clogged. They're on both sides. The psychic nose, and I have told this story before. I have a cousin who worked in a bank. She was incredibly clever at finding fraud. And so she was hired to train other people. And I happened to be going down from Canada to New Zealand. And I was talking to her and just saying to me how hard it was to have people understand. And so I just said to her, well, how do you know it's fraudulent? She said, it doesn't smell right. I broke out laughing, actually. I said, most people don't have a psychic nose. You have a psychic nose. And so we talked about that. I said, and you can't teach people in a course how to create a psychic nose, but you encourage them to find out what their talent is. Does it look right through the eyes, right? Does it look right? Yes, smelling right. Does it taste right? Something all of a sudden is like, oh, I got this funny taste in my mouth. And how does it feel? And so you got look or hear. Does his voice sound the voice sound right? Because your eyes, your ears, your nose, and your mouth are there. Plus, your intuition is more feeling. You just get a funny feeling, like something's not right here. So she had much more success once she knew that. Look for the sorry, have the people look for their talent. What when something comes up and if it doesn't feel right, doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, with her it doesn't smell right. So it's like we never know what we're working with and where we are, but if we pay attention we become aware of where our most, you might say, psychic element is actually there. um that's really, really important. So if we have any one of these, you're not going to be as centered and or as aware as you would like to be, for sure. And that's part of the whole thing, is getting the soul working so you don't have issues in your life, but they rather that you can solve them much more easily or achieve where you want to go. One of the things I discovered that I wasn't going to touch on, but I will, the difference between spirituality and philosophy. When as you know, I have a sheet that I work by, and it comes up when that issue comes up, spiritual. If I check, is it spiritual or is it philosophy? Spiritual is that you have a philosophy actually, but your spirituality has some framework, and sometimes that framework gets in the way of what you're wanting to create. And I look for that if I'm working with somebody. How are they stopping them? Because they'll have belief systems in there, sometimes from past lives, sometimes just because in this life they've read this, they've read that, or they've heard this person or that person. Oh, okay, so I started to freeze, and she says, but I came back. Oh, great, I'm back. That's good. I hope it didn't miss too much. Doesn't tell me that I'm doing that. That was really difficult. So I'm really, Karen, who's on, thank you. Got no, immensely. I'm almost forgetting where I am. Oh yeah, spiritual philosophy. Or we have a philosophy of life that we follow, and then that can sometimes be limiting. So because of there's a framework, whenever there's a framework, when you're dealing with our soul and where we're wanting to go, the spirituality or the philosophy of the whole thing becomes really can create a huge block actually about getting what you want, even though you're not going to be aware of it because it's inside, but it's certainly part of that. So that can be part of there. So your chakras, I've talked a lot about chakras before. I work with an expanded chakra system. If you're still working with just the plain 7, please go back and look at my video about the expanded chakra system and where they are and how they work. The male-female system, again, another balancing point. Male, female, masculine, feminine, mother, father, matriarch, patriarch, all happening in the male-female system. People often just deal with the two. That's the two that meet the world, male-female system. Where's our energy? Some of us have a lot of male energy. Some have more female energy. But there's another underlying masculine, feminine. That's more of us on the spiritual side. That makes a difference. Just to be aware that if you're trying to get ahead and then all of a sudden you can't figure out why, you do all the mental stuff, which, yes, a lot of the stuff I teach is about mental, getting the mind right. Because if you get that right, it really helps bring other things in alignment. But if you don't know anything about these other energy points, it's like you're swimming up what do they call it? Going up with a creek with going the wrong way with a paddle or something. It makes it difficult. I did talk about, and somebody mentioned this after, what I call the selves. High self, we know about. It's the connection. Earth self, connection to the earth. And the shadow self, the connection behind. I just wanted to repeat again because a lot of people didn't get what I was saying. It's when I froze last time, I think. The story I tell about the shadow self is I began to hear a lot of things about the shadow self, and none of it was good. It was dark. It was horrible. We got to clear it out. We can't have it, blah, blah, blah. So, me being me, I sit down and have a conversation with my guides. Okay, guys, what's this thing with the shadow self? Well, excitement. Almost like I'd won the lottery or something. Very excited, very pleased, very happy. And what they told me was the shadow self is a shadow self because it sits behind you to support you, to give you love all the time. But humans don't deal with their stuff. What they do is anything they don't want to deal with, anything they don't like, they throw it behind them. Guilt, regret, hurt, pain, way back there. Don't want to deal with it. What happens is that shadow self takes it on because that's sitting right there. And then it looks dark and it looks black and it looks horrible. But the reality is that its job is just to have your back and know that you're loved and supported. Whether you want to use the word divine or whatever you want, it is there. It's a loving force that is there, but it gets so overwhelmed with carrying all the stuff you don't want to carry that it looks black. And shadows are kind of dusky anyway. But just know that the high self is very idealistic. The earth self connects you to the earth. Oh, I love that. I love that part when I go down and talk to Mother Earth. By the way, what I get, no one else seems to get. So I don't know whether they're not really talking to Mother Earth, or I know I am, because what she says and tells me comes out in all sorts of things that I find is real. But anyway, that's just another thing. The other thing that affects a lot of us a lot is our other lives that we've had. What happens in our lifetimes is we make decisions. We make decisions about ourselves. We make decisions about other people. And in doing that, we create programs that live in the subconscious mind. That's why my work of working with people over the years has taken me more and more into the subconscious until actually, I think it was last year, I was shown how to totally unplug a program. But you got to get there first to get to the program. You got to clear it all out. It's like if you ever have a storage room, and it's got everything all over, you got to clear it all out until you can finally get to where you want, way at the bottom. Like getting to get my Christmas tree out one time. Anyway, these decisions that you make are spread out through all these things that I look at. But when I'm looking to see what's really the problem, is it a contract? Is it an oath? Is it a vow? Is it an Akashic record that needs to be cleared, which you need self-forgiveness for? What else is there? But if it comes up, it's subconscious. In other words, there's no way you're going to be aware of it because it's buried deep, deep, deep. Buried deep. So if it is buried deep, you have to have somebody go find it. What I found with anything that has to do with, where am I here? Program. No, I'm not quite there. Sorry, I lost myself in here because Karen's telling me when I'm shaking or what, and I'm trying not to touch my table. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Hang on. If Akashic Records, I do have a meditation that can take you to the Akashic Records building, and you can actually read, or hear what some of the stuff that you've got registered in there. But the element is that if it's in the subconscious, those decisions, you've got to be able to clear them. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. I was fortunate in being shown how to, but as I said, we got to clear all the top stuff first before we can get there. Just can't jump in deep, deep, deep. The other thing I want to talk about is program reinstillers. I found when I started doing deeper work with myself that somehow some of these things kept coming back. And I would say to myself, what's that doing there? I cleared that. That's gone. But obviously it wasn't. So again, go have a conference with my people who teach me, not of this world, my guides. And they talk to me about program reinstillers. In other words, I might think I have cleared a program, but then they come along. The program itself that reinstills it comes and reinstills it. And that's what happens to many, many people when they do counseling, when they change their thinking, when they change whatever, they don't get to the base of the program. What is the program? Now, I'm not putting down having counseling. I've done that myself. It's important to get the consciousness sorted out. But you've got to know that if you're going to keep reinstalling some of this old stuff, then you're not clearing it. You're just having a mental understanding. You got to go deep inside, find it, and dissolve it in light. I use light. For me, I use a golden yellowy light and clear it. When I'm working with a person, I often find out what it is, and just we can clear it energetically. But it is something. So, there's other levels, there's energy levels. Are so important. And most of us that are looking at anything philosophically are on a spiritual plane because we've lived before. Most of us, I don't run into people who haven't had past lives. We just keep repeating it, I have remembered so many past lives. I don't remember them all. I have a few that I still know I did, especially the one before this. Not understood it perfectly. It makes so much sense to my lifetime and what I've had to endure at times. It's clearing the decisions that we made about ourselves, about other people, and looking at those. In so many of the past lives way back when. And I've written a book about many lives and many ways of remembering them. And when traveling Europe, it's so interesting to see what we made. So we're looking at contracts that we've made with ourselves and others. We look at oaths that come in, usually from male lives. We make an oath to do and be. There's through the Middle Ages, there was a lot of war going on in Europe. And people went and signed up to be under, because they were poor. Somebody created a little army. And you made an oath to give your power to the person in control. So if you have a power issue with authority, where you give it all away, you don't, 9 times out of 10, you use oaths. Oaths are there. Now, vows tend to be more in women, church, and spiritual vows. Again, subserviency. Give up your power to the others. Those two, oaths and vows, both have a tendency for that. Not always. Oaths can be a bit stronger than that, but vows, I find. And then, of course, the Akashic record, which to me, the only way to clear those is through self-forgiveness. And I do my prayer, like my mental mind treatments with people so they can clear those. Other than that, well, we have lots of other things, but basically, that is really what I had wanted to say last Wednesday. And even though apparently I started to freeze and everything, and I'm trying to keep my hands totally away from my table if that's the problem, which could be. It hasn't been up until last week. So I don't know. I think once before I had some problems, but I can see I get excited and I can jabble this table, I guess, which affects my laptop here. I just wish you well in understanding yourself and really, oh, Karen, you are sweet. Marion says it's not my table. I don't know what it is, and it's just airwaves. Maybe that's it, the airwaves or whatever. Thanks for my support system. I tell you, I love what Karen says here. Sorry, I don't usually talk about it. I'll talk to them later. Your picture freezes and audio jumpy, but you're able to be heard. Oh, that's goodness. I like to be heard. But anyway, that's kind of what I am doing. I'm just looking at the bottom of my page here where I call it, there's the checks and balances, doubters, objectors, distractors, jobs, and other things that we have inside of ourselves that need to be dealt with. But the alignment between the conscious work, the subconscious, and the superconscious are really important because we need to forgive and forget it, all this other stuff. What's done is done because you're in this life now and you need to have this life work. And so I want to thank you for those of you that are listening. There's 5 of you online now watching me go up and down. It says 4 thumbs up. So all 4 thumbs up. Thank you. What else do I want to say here? Because Karen, thank you. She's got really helped here. And Marion's coming and says it's not my table. We'll see. But Karen, that was helpful because I moved back a little bit more than I usually do. What else did I want to say? Oh, well, it's Wednesday. And then again on Sunday, I've been thinking of not doing a Sunday thought, but so many people really like them. So I don't like giving that up right away. I'm also planning a trip over Easter, so I won't be able to do an Easter talk like I usually do. What else of anything new? I don't think so. I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank you for those that I know tell their friends, to watch me. I'm hoping to be able to make some changes that's going to work. Karen says, I hope I didn't disturb you. No, you helped a lot because I got, it just kind of came in. I don't think so. Anyway, that was the talk I kind of wanted to do last Wednesday that never got really. I did when I listened to it, I was just too much information. I would have gotten not sure what was talking about. So probably it was a godsend. Anyway, have a good week. Have a good week. See you later. Bye now. Thank you for watching. Karen in particular, you're a gem. And Marion, thank you.